because they're in college, we can't do in-person exposures, but what we'll do is we'll connect with them by phone. And we will, before the exposures, we will talk, we will do all this stuff. And then during the exposure, what we'll do is they'll have a earpiece in, an AirPod, you know, and they'll be connected to us by phone. And we'll just, they'll do the exposures.
This struggle got purpose and we grow. So whatever road we have to take next, all I need to know is that we'll roll with the punches.
All right, fam, another day of life, another day of daily. It never gets old, fam. It never gets old when I say this. So blessed to be spending another day with you, just putting mental health out in this world. And fam, we've talked, we've had a lot of business talk over the last week or two as I've been finishing up all this stuff at Midwest Anxiety to push out our programs into Kansas communities. We're not going to talk much, if not much at all, about business stuff today. We're going to talk a lot of just nitty-gritty, clinical kind of anxiety, just kind of trying to figure out life struggles talk today. I will say, though, some of the things that I talked about last week and just having some big meetings that I can't tell you about, they're continuing to progress, y'all. They're continuing to progress. And I think by the end of March, I'll be able to give you, we're going to put on the black big time announcement jacket with the bow tie. We got the microphone. We've got some big time announcements coming up. I think by the end of March, if everything continues to go well, by the end of March, we'll have some big time announcements. So you guys stay tuned for that. But today, just boots on the ground, y'all. Just boots on the ground. And we're just doing mental health. We're continuing to see clients. And I want to tell you, after I get done seeing this next client, I want to tell you about an awesome thing that we do with socially anxious people, especially socially anxious college kids. I want to tell you about that because you don't get to see the insides of our therapy sessions, but I want to give you a little inside look. I want to try to give you a little inside look of what it's like to be a socially anxious Midwest Anxiety college student therapy client. Let's talk about that on the other side of me seeing this client. All right, y'all? All right, y'all, let's talk about college, being in college, being a socially anxious college kid and doing therapy at Midwest Anxiety. Okay, it's time for what's been coming up in client sessions. So as long as you are a college student in Kansas, this is something that we can help you with, and I really love it. I really love it. You don't get to see it. I wish you could see it. Unfortunately, confidentiality, HIPAA, blah, blah, blah. You get it. You know it. You know all about it. But we will do therapy. We will do therapy virtually when they're off at school. And then when they come home, we'll see them in person. But when they're off at school, we'll meet with them virtually. And then there's a part of our works when we are working with somebody that is socially anxious, that has fears about the judgments that other people have of them, that we will do exposures with them. And because they're in college, we can't do in-person exposures, but what we'll do is we'll connect with them by phone. And we will, before the exposures, we will talk, we will do all this stuff. And then during the exposure, what we'll do is they'll have a earpiece in, an AirPod, you know, and they'll be connected to us by phone. And we'll just, they'll do the exposure. So an exposure is going out and pushing yourself into a social situation, exposing yourself to a social situation, like going up and asking someone where the restroom is, right? And as they're doing that on their phone, then we get to hear that interaction, right? We get to hear that interaction, and then after the exposure, we'll talk about it. So before the exposure, we talk about, okay, what are your thoughts and your feelings going into the social exposure, okay? And then after the social exposure, we'll talk about, you know, what are your thoughts, your feelings, your SUDS, which is the anxiety score, 0 through 10. We'll talk about the anxiety. Did it go up? Did it go down? We'll just talk all about anxiety. And what we'll do is we'll discuss how their thoughts, the thought that the client had, contributed it to the feeling, which this is cognitive behavioral work, right? So the thought contributed to the feeling, then that contributed to the behavior. So the more positive the thought is, the more positive the feeling, the more positive the behavior. The more negative, anxiety, anxiousness, the more anxious you are, the more this is going to turn out awful, they're going to laugh at me, this is not going to go well, I hate this. The more that you have that thought, the more that you have that feeling, the more that you're going to have an avoidance behavior, okay? So what we do is when we're working with these college students, we not only talk about their thoughts and feelings, but the exposure going into the feared situations. We will talk about it in real life as it's happening, okay? And wow, how rewarding it is to see that someone goes into a situation that they just find really challenging and difficult, coming out of the situation in therapy, y'all. In therapy. They're doing this in therapy. Okay, we're not sending them home. Well, we are, because they're going to do it for homework. We're not sending them home to do it on their own. We're actually doing it right there with them. And even though they're off at college, we can still help them. How cool is that, y'all? How cool is that? So we'll, after the exposure, we'll talk through it, and then they'll have to do it on their own. And the idea is the more that they do it on their own, the more they habituate the anxiety, the easier it becomes, the more that it just transfers into their everyday life, okay? And before you know it, they're doing these things without really thinking about it, because, hey, we did it in therapy, I practiced it on my own between therapy, and boom, now it's just generalizing into my everyday life. You getting me, fam? You getting me on this? We do exposures for socially anxious people in 4 areas. First area is, in no particular order, initiating conversation, being the center of attention, asserting self in conflict, and making mistakes in front of other people. So we focus on those 4 areas. And I love it. I wish you guys could see it, because how cool is it to see someone go through that experience and come out the other side, and they still may be anxious, but they saw that they were able to handle it. Or maybe the situation went better than what they expected, and they get the confidence out of it, y'all. Oh, yeah. Yeah, give me socially anxious people all day long, y'all. Some of the best people I know are socially anxious people. They're very caring and loving. And unfortunately, sometimes they care about other people's opinions more than they do their own. And we got to help them with that self-confidence too. All right, y'all, I got to go see a client. All right, fam. We're going to just call it here today. I know these vlogs have been shorter, but we've talked about it. I'm not going to keep talking about it because just a lot going on, and I'm giving my energy where it needs to be right now in different places. Here's the thing. In years past, in times past, when I would start to get busy in other things, remember?
On track, now we